Joe, congratulations on being inducted into the California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you very much.
I have a few questions I'm going to ask you about your career. I want to start off by asking you, what individuals have had the greatest influence on your wrestling career? Any one or whoever's had an influence on it?
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I was born in Oklahoma, but I didn't have wrestling where I was at there. And so when I went to high school, my dad was a superintendent on a turnpike, so I went to Wellington, Kansas, and they started wrestling that year, and they had a coach come in just out of college. And I was talking to him and I was playing football. I was running back on the football team, sophomore, and my sophomore year, actually. And Kenny Spicer was his name. He was my high school coach, and he had a great effect on me at the beginning, of that, and talking to me about the sport. Because I really, even though I should have had the background, I didn't have the background, but he said, I think you could be good at it. And I said, well, let's give it a try and see. So I started my sophomore year. And that was how I got started, and Kenny was the biggest influence at that time on me.
Do you have anyone that you've looked up to in wrestling, or like an idol?
There's
a model?
Well, I mean, there's been several, but probably the one who helped me the most, and one I used to watch the most when he was at Oklahoma State, was Doug Blueball. And he and I got to be really good friends, and he helped me prepare for the 1964 trials in New York City. And so I went down every night, and he was farming, and I'd get down to Ponca City about maybe 8 or 9 at night. We'd work out in the Ponca City High School gym for an hour or two, and did that all summer. And I went through the trials and ended up in the finals. And so a lot of it, as far as my technique, especially in freestyle, came from him. But he was also a really good folk style wrestler too, as well. But it was this attitude about it that he was.
I think you already had answered this question probably in the opening one, but how did you get started in wrestling? It was in high school, right? You're
Yeah.
a high school coach that.
When I started wrestling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. My mother was big into basketball. She grew up in Oklahoma and stuff, and so I was playing basketball as I was younger coming up. And I was starting guard on the basketball team that year, and they had a coach that I didn't really care for too much, and he was all right, but he just wasn't what I wanted to be with. And so anyway, there was a discussion one day in practice, and I just told him I couldn't play for him, so I just went back, and I was going to lift weights and run track in the spring and play football. And that's how I got started. And Kenny Spicer I was in his class, in science class, and he was young enough that he wasn't that much older than I was, actually, at that time, coming right out of college. And he just got me started. I'll never forget my first match, though. My first match, I wrestled at home, first match I'd ever had, against the defending state champion. And I did a lot of bridging. I didn't get pinned, but I tell you what, I learned how to use the legs after that, because the figure four and those things were effective at that time, and this guy was a master at it. And so that was quite an experience, being a football player and getting my butt wiped all over the mat. That was interesting to start with. So I just told Kenny when I got off, I want to beat him. And he says, you will. You just got to keep working. And I did.
Joe, what do you contribute, consider that made you successful in wrestling? What contributed to your success? Was it
coaching or wrestling?
Motivation, skill, desire?
Well, first of all, I hate to lose at anything. That helped a little, because I would never quit trying and try to improve all the time. But it was just the kind of sport that I was looking for, because in the team sports where you're out in football, basketball, whatever, you're an important part of it, but it's never that much about any one single thing. You're a part of it. But in wrestling, you're a part of it individually, separate, because of the weight classes, and that appealed to me. I want to be responsible for my winning or losing, and hopefully helping the team win or lose. So,
is there a memory or a situation that involving wrestling that's outstanding in your mind, in your memory?
I'll probably, there was a lot. I mean, I don't know where I would even start on something like that, but coming to Bakersfield right out of college and starting at South High School, I was around. Bruce Fitzrider was there before me, and he went to junior college, but he had done a really good job with that group of people down there who was running the program. So I started right after I came back from the trials, my first job and everything, and I got into there, and there was some really good talent, but guys that wanted to be good in wrestling, and that was the whole key is don't do something halfway. If you want to do it, let's do it right, whatever it is, and so we started off with that premise, and then coming from the Midwest, at that time there wasn't a lot of leg wrestling in California. There was, so I brought that in when I came in as part of it, and being in the same conference with two Oklahoma State coaches, and one from Iowa and one from Colorado, but that's all back to the Big Eight stuff. So they were all here at the time, Leon Tedder and Grover Raines and a bunch of them, good coaches, and even in North Iowa where Bruce Burnett went. They had a really good coach too. He was one of those kind of guys that you'd want your son to be around. So,
as a wrestler, is there one match that stands out in your mind? Or possibly as a coach, a dual meet that stands out in your mind?
Well, dual meets, obviously, whatever level you're at, whether it be California when I was here or in Cal State Bakersfield or at Oklahoma State. You always wanted to beat the people that you were told that you couldn't beat. And that would have been, at the four-year level, at Oklahoma State, that would have been Iowa and those kind of teams. And then out here at Cal State, we were doing the same thing. We were fortunate enough to be able to get Iowa and Iowa State and Oklahoma State on our schedule. And finally got to the point where we could go really well with them after a series of years. It didn't happen overnight, but it eventually happened. And I think a lot of it had to do with the mentality and the other coaches in town at Bakersfield and me. It was a way of life in Bakersfield at that time. It was unbelievable. It was one of those experiences I wouldn't want to forget. And same thing at Cal State Bakersfield, starting out like I did and having people come in and help that really didn't have to, and we didn't have a lot to work with, but we had the right attitude and the right motivation. So, but the actual matches in high school, of course, was to beat everybody that you wrestled in the same way at any level. It's, even when I went to the Olympic Games and stuff, it was to win those titles. And thank goodness I had Bruce Burnett with me when we did that, so, and at Oklahoma State. So.
Now, you've done a lot of coaching.
A little bit.
What influenced you? How did you decide to go into coaching?
Well, I always thought I thought a little bit about coaching at first, and I thought I'd just, be a, whatever it was, you go out and you teach and make a living and take care of your family and go on. But wrestling and actually coaching in itself is just, I like the idea that you're only limited by your own limitations, and you have to work with different things to make things happen. And if you were fortunate enough to encourage the right young men to come into the program, whether it be at high school or Cal State or at Oklahoma State or internationally, that was different. You were getting the best we had in the country if you were coaching at the international level at that time. So I actually had finished a master's degree and just was getting ready to come out to California when I got the job, and I went ahead and took the law school test and passed that because that's part of my education was in those areas. But I'm glad I didn't do that because I would have probably been a really bad attorney. So, but wrestling was just, and coaching, after I got into it, I never looked at it as a job. I looked at it as something I really wanted to do. I just loved the sport, loved coaching, loved working with young men, and that's what kept me into it. It was more of a passion than anything else.
If you had a chance to start all over again, would you do something differently? Would you go about it differently?
Well, I mean, obviously, anybody that lives makes mistakes, and you would like to go back and correct a few of those. I don't want to mention any things, but I made some mistakes, and I would have corrected those if I could. But I wouldn't change the fact that I wanted to be a coach, and I went the direction that I went in.
What would you like people to remember about you, Joe?
That's a tough one. Basically, I would probably just, and I don't know it's that way because I have contacted a lot of my former athletes and stuff that I've coached throughout the years, and just the relationships that I've had with them. Those were the things that meant the most to me and still mean the most. I assume they always will, and that's one reason why I wouldn't change those areas at all.
And finally, what has wrestling contributed to your life personally?
It's made me who I am, for good, better or worse. It's made me who I am, and I wouldn't have been the same person had I not chosen that way to go. And I'm not sure that's a great thing all the way around, but for me, it was an absolute good choice.
Joe, congratulations. Thank you for all you've done for wrestling.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations for being inducted in California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.